Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another presentation in the Engage Online Learning series. Today, we're going to learn more about CCSN's best practice guidelines for adult day programs, which will be presented by Carol Green. And I'll let Carol introduce herself a little further when she begins her presentation today. Just a few tips for how you can interact with Carol and myself today. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to type these into the chat pod or into the question pane, and I'll be sure to make sure that those get answered along the way as we go. There will also be some time at the end for more questions as well for Carol. And we're also recording this presentation, so if you would like to review it at any point in time or share it with one of your colleagues, you can use the link for our archived webinar channel, which is called Go to Stage. So Carol, I'm going to turn things over to you. Let me just make you a presenter and you can share the PowerPoint.
Perfect. Everybody see that? Or Jamie, at least?
Yeah, it looks great.
Perfect, great. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is my first time hosting a webinar, so please bear with me. I'm going to try to do my best. Today we're reviewing the best practice guidelines for Champlain Adult Day Services, and as well as my role as the Adult Day Program Quality Program Resource. The best practice guidelines document and the presentation, this PowerPoint will be available after. So I'm going to go ahead and go. So for an overview for today, what we're going to do is a brief introduction to me, if you don't know who I am, as well as introduction to the project and the development of the guidelines. How to get started with implementation, recommendations, common challenges, barriers, and hopefully some helpful suggestions for addressing, as well as resources and next steps. So items that we're hoping to achieve and get out there for all of our adult day programs to be able to use. So as the implementation lead, my name is Carol Green, and I am a Community Support Services Manager with Care4 Health and Community Services. My role with Care4 has included supporting multiple adult day programs in Ottawa, as well as other CSS programs predominantly in Ottawa. I've been seconded to the CCSN until March 31st to support the implementation of this project and create shared resources across all of the day programs. So you can see my role might be a little bit fun, traversing across the expanse of the Champlain region. I'm very excited to be able to help and develop and share resources across all the programs, as well as the opportunity to visit many of the programs that I have not seen before, or even some of the ones that I've been to continue to work together. So some of the implementation support that we're planning will include supporting the individual programs with their self-evaluations, regular communication and updates such as the CCSN Insider, facilitated education sessions and pre-tape sessions for information, and of course developing the tools and the resources that are going to make this implementation easier. So the best practice guidelines was developed and authored in July of 2018 by the Regional Adult Day Program Committee. And the purpose of it was as a tool designed to assist in developing practices that support a quality day program. So, and this is something that we wanted to make sure was spread out across all of the adult day programs and supporting a standardized approach to the provision of care and make sure it's delivered across all the programs, regardless of what agency and what location. So this is what the title page of the best practice guidelines actually looks like. It's very pretty. It's easy to find. So the actual document following the introduction is broken down into 4 core areas. And so they are administrative practices, quality, human resources, and care and service coordination. So each of the areas has a written standard, and then as well as guidelines to assist with implementations or examples and further details. So if you're looking at getting started on reviewing the best practice guideline, you want to ensure that you are sharing and understanding guidelines with your ADP team. You set aside time to review the 4 core areas in best practice guidelines. You use the best practice guidelines self-evaluation checklist, which we're going to get to in a little bit, so that you can identify where your program is. You're going to try to break up the document into smaller sections so you can review it in shorter bursts if that's easier than taking a larger chunk of time. And use your team meetings to work with your team members, update them, keep them included and engaged in the process because they might be your best resource. So some notes on common challenges and where to find solutions. I have 3 examples of the guidelines that I've broken down a little bit further. So this is the first standard, program description. So this is under Administrative Practices 1.1. I shortened the standard and the guidelines to the key information as well as added a special notes section based on when I had reviewed the document. And I'm sure there's other areas and other notes, and I'm hoping to hear from teams after they've reviewed the document so we can share that information as well. So the program description talks about having a written description and that it may include the program statement of purpose, goals, values, and so forth. The special notes that I've included for this one say that you might find this information on your agency's website, on CareDev, in your brochures, and the guideline mentions the program's statement of purpose and value, so not just the agency's. And in follow-up sessions after this, I will go into more detail for each of the standards and add any other feedback from other teams as well. And this is 2.1, so this is quality, so continuous quality improvement. We can often find these in areas such as their strategic planning or actual continuous quality improvement plans developed by your agency. And this section also talks about incident reporting and complaints. And you do find that elsewhere in the document, but it's still important. And you might find that things are repeated in different sections, but that they still apply to both areas. So the special notes I have in this one are, again, might be fine within the strat plan or continuous quality improvement. Might be found in the multi-sector service accountability agreement or accreditation requirements that your agency may follow, as well as in agency policy and procedures. And this is the third one, so 3.1, this is under human resources, and this is talking about the staff qualifications. So this section details the qualifications of an ADP staff, as well as some training or employment guidelines such as relevant experience, supervisory management opportunities, vulnerable sector screening. You might be able to find this information in your company's job posting requirements or job descriptions, with your human resources policies and procedures, training opportunities that your agency provides, and so forth. So working with the best practice guidelines, I have developed a self-evaluation checklist that will be going out with the PowerPoint slides as well. And so how do you align? Try to find in the self-evaluation checklist where you land. It's an implementation planning tool to identify where your program implementation plans need to focus. So you'll see in it that I identify needs in progress, needs support, not applicable, and how it can help you. So identify areas that are already aligned or those that need attention. We're all hoping that we find lots of areas that are already aligned so we don't have to focus on so many. We want to flag potential barriers to implementation, because those can also help guide your future conversations either with myself or looking for support or with your agency. And we want to establish areas that are also affecting multiple programs. So this is a snapshot of the checklist. You can see the structure set up. There's a column for standard and then the guidelines to assist with implementation. So this is again taken directly from the best practice guidelines. And then there's a couple of columns for meets, in progress, needs, and not applicable. And then the last column that I've put in there is kind of the most important one to me, and I hope will be the same for everyone. And that's have resource, draft, or template to share. So we're hoping that agencies that already have those items or already have it identified easily will be able to share with myself so that I can share with the across the board with agencies that don't have that resource. It's much easier to refer to a document that's already created rather than create your own from scratch. But in some cases, it will be creating our own. And remember, you might already have some of these pieces. So there's areas that you can look for the information within your own agency, such as existing policies and practices and procedures within your human resources department or policies. Your own website, your brochures, your marketing material might have some of that information. Quality improvement plans and strategic plans, education and training that you currently provide and are planning to provide, as well as any program documents, so activity calendars, nutrition and menus, those such things. So there are some other tools that we're looking to make accessible to all the programs, such as making checklists. So the best practice guideline checklist, self-evaluation checklist is one. If we need a transition checklist for helping clients that are transitioning out of services, if there's a human resources checklist that should be added to employees' files or to help with any sort of policy or procedure drafts or examples, survey templates for when we need to survey the clients and the caregivers, annual training and education plans, responsive behavior supports. So that's a list where it can identify where programs can seek support, so cultural diversity and inclusion, as well as activity and therapeutic. So I have a poll that Jamie is going to pop up for us.
Yeah, I'll get that up for you now. All right. So the question is, which of the following 5 resources would be the most useful to you or your agency? And your options are the checklists on best practice guidelines, transition resources, human resources, policy or procedure drafts and examples, resource lists for things like responsive behavior supports and diversity, survey templates, or other. So you're welcome to put your response in there. And I ask that if you select other, can you please type a note in the chat or in the question pane saying what is the other resource that you would feel would be most useful? I'll give a little bit more time for people to respond. We have about 70% in. I know sometimes we're watching these webinars as a group, and so it takes some time to get the consensus of the group. It looks like about 90% have voted though, so I'm going to close that and I'll share it with you now. And I know, Carol, sometimes the presenter's not able to see the poll, so I'll let you know what the results look like. I'm sharing them currently. And the five resources, it looks like 42% are really interested in the resource lists. 32% the policy procedure drafts and examples, and 26% indicated that the checklists would be most beneficial. And let me just have a quick look. There's a question coming in. And the comment is, of course, and I thought this might happen, is that they would all be super useful.
Oh, great.
So yeah, I left it as a multiple choice, but it could have been a multiple answer, but it might have been the case that there wouldn't have been a sense of which one was the most sort of significant. But yes, I imagine they're all helpful. So back to you. Let me just hide that poll for you so we can see your slides again. There, you should be back, and just throw it into full screen again for us. Perfect.
Is that good?
Yep, that's great.
Perfect. Great. Thanks. So that's great to hear. It's definitely something that I was feeling would benefit the programs, definitely the resource lists, policies and procedures checklists. And certainly I'd be really grateful to hear if there's anything outside of those ideas that would be helpful. I know once we all start getting really into the best practice guidelines, we'll see more needs and we can work together and figure that out. So the next steps for kind of the larger group, or this group that's joining us today, is looking for facilitated education sessions. So this would be something that I would assist with in creating short pre-taped segments focusing on the core themes that can be watched anytime after the release. So for example, the 3 slides that I showed you about each of the individual guideline pieces, I have completed that for all of the best practice guidelines with some ideas and some shared information. So that would be pre-taped and available for people to watch so that you're not sitting through all of it today, as well as in-depth discussion about the 4 core areas once those videos have been released, and any areas that are identified by surveys or checklists or site visits that indicate additional support or resources that are needed. So we'll work on those pieces as they come up. And then individual agency support. So I'm looking to support the agencies that need the help, that would like the help, and by going in to the programs and meeting with whoever's identified as the lead, whether it's the frontline staff or coordinators or managers and directors, and having an opportunity to directly support them in reviewing the checklist and developing tools, hearing what their struggles are or challenges, getting to tour some pretty amazing programs and supports, and as well as just being there for whatever resource each agency or lead or individual feels is best for their program. So I'd love to hear if there's any questions or items that want to be brought up for discussion. I know we have a lot of time left today. So I'll just leave that open for a minute, and Jamie will help moderate that so that I can hopefully answer a lot of questions.
That's great. Thank you, Carol. Yeah, we'll leave some time for people to type in any questions that they have. And as a reminder, yes, you will be sent these slides as well as a copy of the best practice guidelines after the session today. And once Carol has done the pre-recorded sessions that are going to cover the other parts of the guidelines, they will be available on our go-to stage channel. That's where all of the archived webinars are. And typically we're releasing information about them in the CCSN Insider. So if you don't already receive that, that is our newsletter that goes out every couple of weeks. And you can sign up for that. And that's typically, again, where we share those kinds of opportunities. So we do have a question coming in. And The question is there a timeline to complete the assessment to see if we meet the guidelines?
For the checklist or for,
It sounds
sorry?
like the self-assessment. So is there a timeline for completing the self-assessment to see where they're at in terms of meeting the guidelines?
So there isn't a timeline except for my role is only until March 31st, 2019. So if they're looking for additional support and help, it would obviously need to be done before March 31st.
Right.
I think that with the development of some of the tools, it might make it so that people don't feel like they necessarily need as much direct support, but I'm absolutely open to that.
With the best practice guidelines, was there a deadline for being sort of on top of those or implementing the best practice guidelines?
No, there isn't a specific deadline.
Okay.
But the sooner the better, especially if we're working together on it now as a focused project, I think, anyways.
Perfect. Are there any other questions out there for Carol or anything that you'd like to have her review from her presentation? And has the self-assessment already been sent out, Carol?
No, that will be sent out today as well.
It will. Okay. So there will be a package sent out to everybody who attended.
As well as I will send it out to the Adult Day Program Association list, just because I know there were a few members that weren't able to make it today as well.
Right. Okay, great. And so the video production, you expect that will be probably available by early January, is that?
Yeah, so early January was my initial forecasted timeline. However, in speaking with one of my colleagues, we think we can get it done within the next 2 weeks, just because the slides have already been developed. It just needs to be recorded. So I just have to be brave enough to record.
Perfect. Okay. So just in case anyone was wondering about the timeline on those videos, there is a question if the documents and resources are going to be available in French.
Yes, so there is going to be translation for all the documents. It won't be released necessarily at the same time as the English ones go out, but soon thereafter. I know that it is intended that it's supposed to be accessible to all programs. So yes, it should be available in French.
Perfect. Any other questions for Carol? And if not, we'll stick around maybe for another 10 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes. And otherwise, you have the gift of time today for your lunch hour. And please make sure you watch for the files, the documents that will come out, and for an announcement about when the videos will be ready to help you to work your way through the remainder of the guide. And of course, please get in touch with Carol if you would like some one-on-one support for your agency to schedule a visit. Any final words, Carol?
Well, just thank you everybody for joining me today. I apparently speak a lot faster than I planned. I wasn't anticipating being done this soon, but again, like Jamie said, you've got the gift of time from this one. And please, yes, feel free to email me, call me. Email is listed right there so that if you'd like answer any questions, look into anything for you, or schedule a visit for your Adult Day program.
We have 2 other upcoming webinars scheduled that I'll let you know about in January. One will be about the upcoming Caregiver Distress Index implementation to provide a little bit more information to agencies about what that's going to look like. The Caregiver Distress Index is going to be going live with early adopter agencies as of the end of January 2019, and there is still time to get on board for that project if your agency is interested, or you can just join the webinar and learn more about it. We will also be having a presentation in January from the Dementia Society of Ottawa and Renfrew County to learn more about their supports and services for persons with dementia and caregivers and how those programs have changed and evolved in recent times. That'll be presented by their I believe he's a clinical lead or clinical director, as well as some dementia care coaches. So you can join us for that. Again, these opportunities will all come out through the Insider. So thank you once again for joining us today, and I hope you all have a great day. I'll stick around in case there's any last minute questions, but otherwise, you're welcome to sign off.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.